Hello and good afternoon. You are on BYJU'S exam prep channel dedicated to the success of every single MBA aspirant. My name is Vikrant. I've been helping people for 22 years now, where I've taught thousands upon thousands of students, and I've ensured that they go on to realize their dreams. So, if you want to know anything, if you have any question, any concern, any query, just pop in the comment box down below and share it with me so that I can answer it. And additionally, if you're already a part of our channel, you've subscribed to it, you are family then. Welcome back. In case you're somebody new, I would urge you to subscribe to the channel so that you can access a host of amazing sessions that we keep on bringing for you so that you go on to become better. So this is Vikrant and we are meeting each other a day before SNAP and IIFT. Where the IIFT is in the morning slot, the SNAP will happen in the afternoon slot. I hope you're not writing both, but even if you are, it's terrific, it's fantastic. We can always make the best of this opportunity that is given to us. So, any questions, any issues, any concerns? So I don't know about you, but back in the day when I used to prepare for all these exams, and now I've reached a stage where I don't have to prepare, I just show up and ace. But my focus on the last week was more on relaxation. When you talk about these big events, say an event like Olympics, an event like World Cup, what you do in the last 3 days, what you study in the last 3 days is not really going to affect the outcome significantly. What you have done in the 3 months, the 6 months prior to that, that usually matters a lot. So the last few days are more about staying centered, staying calm, keeping your brain and mind in a shape where it is going to deliver its best performance during those minutes and hours of the examination hall. So Gani, non-engineering, okay. IIFT score to get into IIT Delhi. Yeah, actually IIFT does have a lot of different credentials and criteria, but I think right now your focus should be on, although I think we don't know the difficulty level of the exam, but I will still suggest that when it comes to getting a call, you should definitely target, going by some of the previous year levels, you should definitely target around 80, 90, if not more, and that is doable. When I sit down and write IIFT, I mean, I end up getting, if not more, then at least around 60, 65 marks from English, if not more, which means that I just need to get 50, 60 more marks and I stand at the very top. So I think you can definitely aim for that. Enough to do only PYQs for SNAP. Sriram, it is never enough to do PYQs. When you do PYQs, you test your level. The feedback that you receive from those PYQs then shapes your strategy, helps you make a plan that takes you towards success. गौरव यू कैन डेफिनेटली यार, बिल्कुल जैट वैट कुछ भी पूछो, मगर आज मत पूछना. आज स्नैप और आईएफटी पे फोकस रखते हैं, उसके बाद बिल्कुल पूछो यार जैट वैट बाद में, मंडे ऑनवर्ड्स, व्हाई नॉट, एंड वी विल हेल्प यू विद दैट. तो चलिए, so first up, because both the exams are happening on the same day, let me just give you a quick comparison of the two exams. So first up, test duration. SNAP is going to be a 60-minute exam, whereas IIFT is a 120-minute exam. Then the total number of questions also obviously as a result vary. SNAP gives you 60 questions in those 60 minutes, whereas IIFT will give you 110 questions in all likelihood, and don't forget, one section out of which is different, right? So typically you have 3 sections: Quant DI, Reasoning and English in SNAP, and in IIFT you would typically get 4 sections, but be ready for some permutation combinations. There are times when they club one area with some other another area and create a new composition. There are There have been years when they've actually gone on to divide the paper into 5 sections, 6 sections as well. So keep an eye out on that, and that is important because although you have no sectional time limit in both of these exams, but in IIFT you do have sectional cutoff, so that composition may affect your strategy during the exam. So keep it a little fluid to that end, right? And here is the scoring pattern. So when you go and write snap, you'd get +1 for every right, -0.25 for every wrong. Whereas in IIFT +3 and -1, so the negative marking, the penalty is higher, one third instead of 1/4. But in the general awareness section, the question carries only 1.5 marks instead of the conventional 3 marks. So keep that in mind, right? So that's basically it. So here are some basic tips for SNAP. It is a relatively easy exam. So if I look at the kind of design that it has adopted in the pandemic, it has made it an easy exam as compared to say a CAT or a XAT, and therefore majority of the questions that you sit down and write, chances are that you'd find them very easy. Now, because it is an easy exam, it becomes a test of speed, and therefore you want to prioritize easy questions. So how do we know which questions are easy or easier, since the entire exam is easy? Abhishek, SNAP does not have sectional cutoff. IIFT does. When we get into IIFT, I will definitely talk about it. Okay. So the strategy, Sai Shiva, is that you want to solve those questions which are easier. So tell me something. If I show you a question right now on my slide, and then I tell you that there is another question on the next slide, can you tell me which one of those two questions is easier for you without looking at that next question? So you realize these exams are more about question selection, and that can happen only when you manage to read all the questions. So there have been these sessions where we've already talked about a lot of different inputs, a lot of different strategies. So for example, when it comes to VARC, we don't have any RC, right? We only have English, grammar, vocabulary. I personally prefer starting from this section because it is my strength. But even otherwise, even if it is not your strength, I would generally advise that you start from this section. And the reason is that any reasonably good student, you would realize in around 7 minutes, you realize that you have gone through all the questions and solved the ones that you can. And once you are done with that, then you can switch over to DILR, and then you can go over to quantitative aptitude. However, if you have different strengths, let us say you're somebody who's really good at quant, you may want to start with that, right? And throughout this paper, basically adopt a round-based strategy. Read a question, take a call whether you know it or not. If you do not know it, cross it out. If you know it and you know that you can solve it really quickly, solve it then and there. If it is going to take you longer, mark it as a second round question, mark for review, and then come back at it later. Okay, but no matter what you do, divide your time among the 3 sections in such a way that at the end, once you've gone through all the sections, once you've read all the questions, you still have a few minutes left. So now you have seen the entire paper, you still have a few minutes left. Now you can spend that time on an area that will allow you to maximize your score. So if we look at the section, if we look at the overall cutoffs, we've historically, if you have in this particular pattern, okay, a score of between 40 and 43 would usually suffice to get a call from SIBM, and as you go lower, SCM, HRD, SIIB, SIDTM, etc., the cutoffs are obviously going to be lower. So Sai, okay, Sriram has, there are few topics like input, output, binary logic, which need to be done at the end. Sriram, it all depends on your relative strength. So if these are question types that are challenging for you and you realize that even when you spend time on these questions, there is no certainty that you'd get an answer, then yes, they should definitely be left for the end. However, if you're somebody who's really good at it, then why not? You can actually take these up at the beginning. Sai says, my weakness is quant, so can I give it more time to maximize my score? Sai, how would you maximize your score from your weak area? You'll actually maximize your score from your strong areas, isn't it? So spend that time on the strong areas rather. Now go through the section, solve those questions which are easy for you. But beyond that, I'd say a castle is always built around one's strengths and not around one's weaknesses, right? So make sure that you stay on top. And then there's this takeaway from the first slot where we know that VARC has been, that VA English, general English has been very easy. DILR was okay, quant was moderate. So basically just use that understanding and go ahead and write this particular exam. Oh, Sai, yes. In that case, yes. I thought I'm sorry. Then I misinterpreted what you wrote. So yes, you would like to have a look at the quant section, see how much you can get from there, and then devote more time to the others. So maybe you can choose to spend 10 minutes to each section. Actually, you won't even require 10 to English. So maybe 7 minutes to English, 10 to quant, 10 to DILR, and after that you'd have a sense of which areas you can or which question types can help you gain more score. Or you remember Gautam Baba's session from a few days ago? So GB talked about giving 8 minutes to English and then 15-17 to DILR, another 20-25 to quant. So maybe you can use that. So whatever works for you, stick to it. And here are some of the things that you need to obviously do. Leave well in advance. Ready your admit card. Okay, take a color printout and all the shenanigans that are mentioned there. And then carry your admit card along with a valid photo ID and a simple, they've mentioned, black or blue ballpoint pen. When you solve this question, you will find a tab which opens the entire question paper for you. So for longish questions, okay, be it DILR or maybe some of those grammar questions, you can actually use that and that will help you scroll through it, go through it faster. So you can definitely make use of it. I hope quite a few of you also made use of it while working on your CAT exam. And now coming over to IIFT. So the difficulty level, the overall difficulty level of the exam is usually moderate. It is not going to be as easy as the SNAP on an average. And once again, how do we know which ones are easier? We need to look at everything. So question selection, round-based approach, all of that would still come into picture. However, there is one tiny little change. There is going to be a sectional cutoff that you need to clear. Just to keep it simple, I'll say that if you score around 20% of the total allocated marks to that section, you will clear the sectional cutoff of that area. For general awareness, that is usually more around, I'd say 10 to 12%. So basically, if you go through all the general awareness questions and you realize that you can answer 5 or 6 questions with great confidence, just do that and you're done. You definitely you would have cleared the sectional cutoff. Okay. And be ready for that sectional distribution. Don't walk in with a set mindset that I'll have a section on quant, another on DILR, and then English. It is possible that they may split VA and RC into 2 sections. It is possible that they club reasoning with quant instead of clubbing it with DI. It can be a separate section as well, in which case that same sectional cutoff thing will play a role. So make sure that you are prepared, that you're not taken by surprise by this paper. Okay, so be mentally ready for it. And then I personally prefer starting with general awareness, and the reason is that I've over the years seen that in around 8 minutes I am done with this entire section. So at the end of the 8-minute period, I am done with all these general awareness sections and I'm still left with my 112 minutes, and now I can start allocating it to the rest of the areas. Then VARC, if I see, the difficulty level would usually be moderate, except for vocabulary where some of the questions can be very challenging or tricky. So historically, there have been questions where they've asked us about the origin of a word. There have been questions where they have asked us about root words and prefixes. So those are those unknown things that you may not exactly know. You cannot perhaps or possibly know the origin or the etymology of every single word that you've learned. So do look at those questions, and if there is a great confidence, if you know where it comes from, which language it comes from, you can mark it. Otherwise, you can choose to leave it. But the rest of the exam is usually moderate, although, and including reading comprehension, it does have RC, which is usually on the easy to moderate side. Last year was an exception where one of the passages was a bit challenging. So make sure that you do indulge in passage prioritization here as well. Then quantitative aptitude normally is moderate to difficult, although last year when we looked at the QA, it turned out to be, I mean, not everybody was, the way I put it, not everybody was entirely comfortable with it. And DILR once again is moderate to difficult, and normally the data interpretation in the IIFT exam is towards the difficult side. But last year they changed it. Last year the DI that they gave was very, very easy. As a result, even the sectional cutoff for this section went on to be higher than even VARC, which is usually not the case. And throughout this paper, just play around your strength. My advice is start with general awareness. After that, pick up the section that you're most comfortable with, then pick up the section that you're least comfortable with, and then the last section. Okay, so just keep playing around your strengths. And see, remember, be it SNAP, be it IIFT, take it ball by ball. All said and done, you just have one question on the screen. If you can answer that question quickly, you are supposed to do it. If you cannot answer that question, you're supposed to let it go. Don't get stuck. Don't get hung up. And here are some basic things for IIFT. Once again, leave well in advance. Prepare your admit card. Remember, you need to paste a photograph. You need to put your left thumb impression. You need to tick the right boxes in that self-declaration thingy for COVID. And you are allowed these 4 things in the exam. Now, they mention a transparent ballpoint pen. So make sure that the body, the shell of the pen that you have is see-through. If you can ensure that, that will actually be lovely. They will of course be providing you with the rough sheets, and in IIFT, just like every other exam, you cannot carry any electronic device. And at the end of the exam, once you are done, there'll be a drop box. You're supposed to put your admit card in that drop box. Otherwise, your paper may not get evaluated. So don't worry. So Vedant says, what should be the minimum score in quant? I don't know. I mean, the way I see it, at around 25-30 marks, you would have touched around 99 percentile. And but then that percentile thing is not as relevant, because when IIFT gives you a call, remember 73% of the weightage is given to your IIFT score, and the remaining comes from those other areas, right? Diversity, 10th, 12th, etc. So ideally you'd like to maximize, just see if you can. So depending upon your background, say if you are a general category engineering male applying to IIFT, your target should be, I'd say, what, around 105, 107 marks. So once you've cleared that sectional cutoff, after that, as long as you are able to reach this level using the other sections, you can afford to leave this section out. So for instance, say somebody like me who's usually very confident of getting 60-65 marks from VARC. I know that after that, I barely need around, what, 40 more marks. from the other 3 sections. So imagine if you get around 5 marks from GK and you are able to get say around 45-50 marks from English, then you were left with 50 more marks. Then just it all just boils down to how many can you get from DILR. The remaining have to be received from quant. So it all depends on an individual really. Yeah. Gani, you asked this question earlier. I've already answered it. No, Vedant, you're talking about SNAP. Vedant, you don't have a sectional cutoff in SNAP. You just have an overall cutoff. And once again, we are looking at, depending on the difficulty level, okay, if I look at the recent trend, this is what you need for SIBM. Right? So as long as you are able to touch this, you should be fine. And don't forget that the paper is on a relatively easier side. Okay. Gani, when you asked the question earlier, some 3-4 times, and I gave the answer, you're not listening. That's a little weird, dude. But okay. So some of the elements that you have included will come into picture when it comes to final selection. But at this juncture, you definitely want to target 80-90. Right? So just target at least that much. Abhishek, SIIB is a good college, yeah. If you think that the kind of average placements that SIIB has is something that you're comfortable with, and the kind of organizations that come there are organizations that you're happy with, why not? Absolutely, yes. And here is my rule of thumb. If money is not an issue, then my rule of thumb is, if you are in doubt, apply. Think of it as insurance. Okay. So Karthik, normally all the calls at IIFT will fall within this bracket. And the more marks you manage to get, the better it is. And there are some things which are unknown to me, right? Remember, I don't know your 10th score, I don't know your 12th score. So if you've scored more than 90% here, then you're going to get full marks. And that will reduce your IIFT score requirements. So you need to calculate it for yourself. But if you are able to get all the other marks of diversity and 10th and 12th, etc., then even a score of around 75 can at times be sufficient. If you are missing out on those benefits, then you should be targeting at least around 105, if not more. Original, Jay, when you say valid ID, it should be an original government issued current ID which is not expired. So you cannot carry Xerox, you cannot carry a photocopy or an attested copy. No, just carry the original. It can be a voter ID card, your Aadhaar card, passport, whatever. Okay. So that's about SNAP and IIFT, and here is a thought for you. Not this thought. Out of difficulties grow miracles. So if you find the exam challenging, don't you worry. This is there just to make you better. And color, Mayank, for SNAP and IIFT, both color printouts. They've mentioned it very specifically. Okay. And the moment you're done with the exam, on BYJU'S exam prep channel, you'd find the detailed analysis for SNAP as well as IIFT. So we will meet at around 1:45 for IIFT. I'm saying around 1:45 because I was just calculating how soon I can reach the studio. So I'm in all likelihood I'll be there by 1:45. If possible, I'll try to tune in even sooner. And for SNAP, we'll start at 4 p.m. Right? And if you're a CAT 23 aspirant, or if you know somebody who's applying for CAT 23, do recommend BYJU'S. In case this session was useful, do give it a thumbs up, do share a like, and hopefully that will keep us all charged up to help you. Additionally, we are also there on a host of other platforms. I personally am biased towards Telegram because it is a group where you can ask us questions, where you can reach out to the team directly, right? So all the best for your exam tomorrow. I am extremely confident in your abilities. You have put in the hard work, and now just relax today, write the exam tomorrow, and once you're done, come over to the YouTube channel and let us know how it went. We can sit down and discuss it all together. So good luck. See you at